Okay, hi everyone. This is Warren Woodcock from woodcockracing.com, and we're here with Rich Irvine. Richie and I have known each other for how long now, Rich?
I think it'll be 30 years next year. I think we met in 1992.
And where did we meet? Were you at the races at a 15-year-old gambling like a degenerate, or were you playing tennis?
No, I would have been 13 back then, and I was playing tennis. Yeah, didn't even know gambling existed.
And you came to Woodcock.
And look at me now after I met you.
And you came to Woodcock Tennis and Swim, and we messed your whole life up.
Yeah. Woodcock Tennis and Swim in Clovelly, sort of people who know Sydney, down near Coogee, near all the beaches there. A much simpler time, and it was a great sort of community tennis centre, really. And I probably went 4 or 5 tennis camps, 1-week tennis camps during school holidays.
Right, with Scott Price and Peter McCormick, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, all those people.
Was cutting racing.
Yeah, and I remember Warren Senior would come late in the afternoons in his MX-5, and he would often have big wads of cash, which were incredibly impressive back then. And I don't know where he was coming from. Maybe he was coming from the trots, or maybe he was on his way to the trots. But yeah, I do remember that, like him having big wads of cash, and he was a bookie, and he'd have his bookie bag and all that kind of stuff. So that would have been when he was sort of starting out as a bookie, right?
Yeah, Dad started in about 83, 84. As you notice, he's always looking over my shoulder. He's behind me. And you worked for Dad after a while, didn't you?
Yeah, so I did the tennis camps with you, and then I kind of lost contact with both of you. And then I was working in a cafe in Edgecliff in 1997. I just finished school, and yeah, Warren was a regular customer there. And we, like how most of he gets most of his staff, he just chats with them, whatnot. And then he said, come work on a Saturday. And I was like, okay, didn't really know much about racing. And I went to Warwick Farm. It was when Octagonal was a good horse, and Octagonal was about $1.90, and Juggler beat Octagonal that day. And I remember was blown away by it. I remember a man came up and had $1,000 to place a horse, and I just couldn't believe that someone could have that much money on a horse, and really enjoyed the day, and went home that night and thought, this is for me, and I've never looked back since. So yeah.
Yeah, and you've then you got from working for my father, and then you left and you joined Team Bartholomew.
Yeah, worked for them from about 2004 till about 2008, 2009. And then I've sort of been mostly doing my own stuff since then, but still have a lot to do with Kingsley Bartholomew. Do a lot of stuff with him, which is great. And it's been a great. And I feel like I'm only just warming up. Really.
Let's talk about 2 quick things. You hadn't worked for my father in about 7 or 8 years, and then out of the blue, my father and I had to go to America, and you took over for a 1-day return. And what did you do?
Also, I've been used to putting bets on for Sean and Kingsley, and so $30,000, $40,000 bets were nothing. And then one of your clients came up and said, I'll have 20,000 on More Joyous. And to me, that was just like, okay, whatever. And I took the bet and didn't really think much about it, which is probably a lot more risk exposure than your dad would have taken on board. And it was the race when More Joyous buck jumped out of the barriers. And it was one of the first races of the day too. And so that happened, and we were 20 grand in front already. So it was a pretty easy day after that. And I probably would have been in a bit of trouble for if it had won, but it didn't. And there you go.
You know, the funny
fortune favors the brave.
The funny thing is that my father was with me in New York, and he called to find out how you'd done. And he almost crashed the car, because when you said that you'd won whatever you'd ended up winning, because he just couldn't believe it was possible, and that you'd stood one. And then the funny thing was, he spent the next week complaining about you laying it even after it got beat. So
that sounds right.
Do us a favor. Tell us your best Warren Woodcock experience that you sort of in later years went, my God, was that man on drugs?
The best one was when I was working for him, and I was sort of his gopher. You got very well looked after by Warren Senior, but you did have to sort of be on call at all hours. And he called me one morning about 8 o'clock, and he had people that know him knew he had a pretty old beat up Mazda MX-5, a red one. Anyway, he called me one morning and said, I have an issue. And I said, okay, what's that? He goes, I have somehow lost the roof of my car. And I was like, okay, how do you lose the roof of your car? Anyway, it turns out that it's a convertible where you can actually take such a small convertible, you can take the roof off. And yeah, he'd been out to dinner the night before, taking the roof off the car, and then got back in the car and forgotten about it, driven off. And the next morning we had to go back to Paddington to try and find the roof of his car. So that's pretty hard to beat that one. And one more quick one is we were going to the races in Orange, and we were driving, and I kept saying, we're going to run out of petrol. We're going to run out of petrol. In my car, I knew my car well, and he kept saying, push it. We'd be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Maybe 40 kilometers outside of Orange or Bathurst. I can't remember what it was. Of course, the car came to stop. We ran out of petrol. And I was like, well, this is great, Warren. Thanks very much. Anyway, we pulled over the side. No one was interested in helping us, and we didn't know where we were. And we were trying to hail down people. Everyone just kept speeding past us. And then finally we see this big horse float coming up the hill that's driving incredibly slowly. And then I'm like, well, we may as well try and see if this bloke will help us. I put my arm out. Sure enough, he picks us up. We had no choice but to get in the car with him. And we got in the car with him, and it was like, he just drove so slowly. It smelled. Obviously, he's a very nice guy. Anyway, we get it all sorted. Takes a while, drive to Orange or Bathurst. I can't remember which one it was. Get there, it's very, very quiet. And then we realised that the races have been rained out. So we had to drive all the way back to Sydney.
Gosh.
That was pretty bad too.
It's funny. There's times where we sit down, some of us, and recant some of the times and tales with Dad. And one story just leads to the next. Now, as you can see over my shoulder, I have the painting of Dad from when he was playing tennis. How many times did he have that look on his face when he looked at you after a race, sort of that, I can't believe you just did that. I'm so pissed off at the world.
Well, can we put it down to just how many times a day? That's probably easier for me. Probably, how many races are there a day? 32 roughly, so probably 30 times.
Now, I'd like to talk.
But he's the nursery champions, though. Look at all the people that have come out of his. So maybe tough love is what you need to make it in the industry. Look at all the big guns that have come out of his nursery.
Now,
a lot of talented wagering people have come out of there. So
it's been quite remarkable how many have come out. Now, just out of curiosity on that, I was going to ask you this, and there's no pressure for best and worst. If you say Warren Woodcock, I'll assume it's Dad, and he'll know it's me. Who was the worst person you worked with at Woodcock Racing? And you need to go with one of the Woodcocks. You don't want to throw anyone else under the bus.
Probably Senior. At his worst, Senior's pretty hard to beat. So yeah, we'll give him that title.
Now, I want to talk to you quickly, because you and I have one thing we disagree with on life rather strongly, and that's your position on the bet limits and betting guarantees and those things with bookies. And while I agree with you in almost every principle you have on it, where I differ is that I think that a small upstart like me shouldn't have the same guarantees that a Ladbroke or we should all sort of feel equal pain, and that there should be a certain threshold you have to reach before you reach those guarantees. And I know you think, as you've said to me many times, hey, if you're not willing to bet to lose $2,000, you shouldn't be betting. And I don't disagree with you, but when you're putting up 20 markets a day on all these meetings all over the place, that might be the only bet you write, and you're writing it to someone like yourself who's sharp. What do you think about the bet limits currently? Do you think they should be raised to the big corporates and be at least equal with what you can get on track? Or just give us a 1 minute overview on where you stand on all that now.
Yeah, position hasn't really changed a whole lot. Yeah, I think that they could probably raise them a bit on the bigger boys, certainly. I guess my overall point with the idea of turnover thresholds dictating what minimum bet limits are is that there's so much price discovery out there now, and when bookies do, they're under no pressure to put prices up, and when they do finally put the prices up, there's been a lot of price discovery, and I just think that to win at least $1,000 on any event when it's horse racing is fair enough. And I just, that's probably my thing. Like, no one's forced to put them up. There's heaps of price discovery already. And I see that quite a bit. Like, quite a lot of the smaller bookies often won't put prices up until 5 or 10 minutes before a race. yeah, but look, I don't know what it's like to bookmake. Maybe I would change my position if I was trying to start up like some of these people are. And it's fantastic that so many people are starting up online these days. You know, one thing that COVID seems to have done is kickstart a lot of on-course bookies moving to online, and that's great.
Now, I took your notes that you sent me for the Melbourne Cup, and you can see they're very in-depth there. I used to have a great friend, Jacko, in Florida many, many years ago, who was a 364 day of the year drinker. And the only day he didn't drink was on New Year's Eve. And he said, I don't drink then because it's amateur night. For professional gamblers like yourself, is the Melbourne Cup a little bit like New Year's Eve, where there's so much undiscovered knowledge because horses come from so many different variables and it's hard to put it together? So it's, while the rest of the nation stops for the Melbourne Cup, you guys to a little degree stop and get a cup of tea?
But yeah, it's never been a particularly good race simply because it's hard to line up the international talent. Yeah, we generally speaking don't get that excited about it. I mean, we do get a little bit caught up in the emotion of it because it's, you know, it is the race that stops the nation. So we probably bet a bit bigger than we really should if we were going to be hard and tough on what, you know, our model tells us to do. That would be our point of view. So yeah, it's not a particularly good race from our perspective, but I would imagine some of the syndicates out there that are more sophisticated than us probably see the exotic pools as great fodder, really, because there's a lot of recreational money in there, and they're probably smarter and more sophisticated than us, and they probably do really well out of those exotic pools for the Melbourne Cup. So yes, but I would imagine that the people above me probably really love it.
Fantastic. Now, in finishing up, I just want to say, first off, thank you very much for supporting Woodcock Tennis and Swim Club. We needed the money back then.
Yep.
And thank you for supporting WoodcockRacing.com by losing my phone number. And I wish you all the best today, but we're going to just real quickly, before we go off, I just have two questions about the Melbourne Cup. They're very short and brief and to the point. Do you like the favorite?
Definitely like the favorite.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. We're keen on the favorite.
Keen on the favorite. And who do you think of the very, very rough chances, 50-1 and above, that might have any hope?
I can't really say that, but what I could say is that we think that Very Elegant and Twilight Payment are probably good risks. Twilight Payment's going to find it hard with that big weight to stay out in front the whole time, and we think Very Elegant probably got belted around too much in the Cox Plate and is going to struggle over a big tough 3,200 meter race.
Well, I appreciate your time, Richie, and next time I'm in Sydney, I owe you dinner, and
dinner. Yep.
All the
Sounds
best
good
to your family, and we'll see you shortly.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
Good on you, Warren. I appreciate it, man.
Bye.
That was fun. Good on you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.